Welcome to the capacitive sensor cable replacement tutorial. First thing you'll want to do is position your torch and carriage so that you can easily access the cable chain and the track. There's this cover back here. You'll also want to have yourself positioned so that you can easily access this cable chain back here through the side panel. Hold on tight and I'll be right back with everything positioned and we'll continue on.
A few moments later.
And we're back. Power is disconnected for the machine. We've got the cutting head positioned in the home position. That gives us the cleanest access to the cable chain back here, and we don't have to bend way over to open up this cover plate here and then access the cable chain over here, because the sensor cable runs through all of that. First step is to disconnect your factory sensor cable. This one isn't factory. This is my first replacement that I built. It works great. The next step, you'll use the 2.5 millimeter Allen wrench that was provided in your toolkit, and you'll remove the screws from this cover plate. And you'll also want to remove the screws to this cover plate. Then you'll want to remove the screws from this cover plate. And then we are ready to start pulling the new cable. Give me one moment. I will pull the cover plates so we can pull the new cable.
A few moments later.
Okay, now that we have access to the top, we have the cover back here removed, and the cover over there, doors open. We are ready to pull the cable. So each of the replacement cables, if you get them from me, will come with this cable that I make from the male ends that don't get used for the cable. This will allow you to attach to the old cable on that end, and then you'll attach your new cable on this end, and that'll help you use the old cable to pull and route your new cable through everything back to the enclosure, just like it was ran for factory. One thing to note, make sure absolutely that you have the power off on your machine or completely disconnected, because this cable effectively does short all 4 pins because it is soldered and then glued and then shrink wrapped. So you absolutely want to make sure any voltages present in the cable. With that said, we're ready to start pulling. If you need to, this cable chain can be opened up simply by using a flathead screwdriver and prying underneath and popping that leaf up, and you can do that wherever you need if you need access. My cables were pretty bunched up, and so it was a little bit of work to get everything to feed back through. Once you get in the straight run, it pulls pretty easily. And then while we have this open, so this here is the sensor cable. Yours will probably be gray. And then if you're just wondering, this is your Z-axis stepper motor cable. And then this little one down here, these guys are your Z-home and travel limit switches. Just be careful because those run through the same cable chain. If you need to disconnect them to get them out of your way, the connectors are directional, so they can only go back one way. It just depends on if you need them out of the way or not. So with that said, we can start pulling our cable attached to our new cable. And then we'll come over here, find our sensor cable, and we can start pulling. You might also find it easier to disconnect your airline. These are just little push connects. You can push and then pull. Because of how crowded this cable chain is, I had to do that with mine to get mine to pull. So let me do that real quick. Okay, we're disconnected here. You can easily come over here, isolate that line, and pull it. I choose to do the clear high pressure line because it's a rigid plastic and it's much easier to feed back through the cable chain, and you can just let that do what it wants to do. And now it'll be much easier to feed and pull your new cable. I have to express not to yank or use excessive force because you could damage the cable or something else in the cable chain. If you get stuck, you may have to kind of to pull back a little bit and then pull to see if you can get it to sneak past wherever it's stuck. If that fails, like I said, you can come along and pop the lid on this chain every so often and try to help guide this through. Let me go ahead and pull to this point, and we'll pick up there.
A few moments later.
Okay, so I ended up having to pop a few of these ears on the cable chain, and I had to pull the black hose, which is your low pressure CO2 air feed line, to get it to make this bend. No matter how you move it, there's always going to be a bend, and because it's segmented, the connectors like to get stuck. So as you're feeding, make sure you're feeding your new cable in as you're pulling your old cable out. And then once you get to here, things get a little bit easier. Okay, we've made it to this point. Now there's a bunch of stuff going on in here. You've got your oxygen pressure setter regulator. You've got this T that connects that, and then you've also got prox home switch sensors and a bunch of other cables. So you got to be really careful right here because your sensor cable is probably going to be underneath all of that stuff. So you'll want to be very careful as you pull it through to not snag or pull any of the other cabling. So from here, like I said, you want to come around to this side, and you'll want to start pulling your sensor cable either into this tract here or down here to pull up all your slack that you have. This cable chain's a little bit easier to work with. You can literally just grab and pull. And the section pops out. To put it back in, you just kind of catch on one end and then rock it down. And it's the same way to pull them out. You kind of rock it to one side and pop it out. There's probably a tool for this, but we don't have it. So anyway, get all your extra slack pulled in, because you kind of have to inchworm your way the whole way along. It's a tedious process. It took me about 45 minutes, but it's the cleanest way to do it. You may find it necessary to remove this cover here, as this corner through here is really tight with the way everything is routed. So there is a M2.5 or a 2.5 millimeter Allen screw here, and then on the front side there are two 3 millimeter cap screws, and then it's attached to the bellows. But if you just carefully pick it up and scoot it back like so, you can get access to your cable, help feed it around this tight corner. Now you can see it better. There's a real, just a sharp corner right here. I mean, it's not sharp, but it's abrupt. And then, everything likes to hang up on that. So it'll just be a lot easier to feed things through if you're not, if you can get to it from the top here. So once you get it into this cable chain here, like I said, you can give yourself access if you need to. And then you can pull, you can find your cable down here. That's the grommet that goes into the enclosure for the electronics. So once you isolate your sensor cable down here, you can pull on it down here at the same time that you feed it through up here and get it through this section of cable chain. Okay, we finally made it to this point here. We're through the cable chains with our adapter and our new cable. I was able to get it through the chain by just having this one spot removed kind of in the middle, so I could kind of pull cable here, feed cable from over here. It helps to have excess cable kind of available between that chain and this corner. That way you can kind of pull here, pull that slack through around the corner, and then pull it through the bend in the cable chain. I can't stress enough how much patience you need to have when doing this so that you don't pull too hard on the cable. Unfortunately, these connectors have square edges and little bumps that catch on each and every one of these links in the chain. And so what I was able to do was kind of just use my fingers through these gaps and just kind of help assist and work my way around. You can lift the chain a little bit from here. It may help to bring the gantry back to give yourself a little bit more slack, so you can kind of manipulate this to get your cable through to this point. From here on, it's pretty smooth sailing. You pull all the slack through. Let me close this so we can get down here. So your cable will come through the ceiling to the electrical box, and you'll just pull, feeding it through, because at this point you'll want to feed all of the slack from your cutting head through. I left one extra little length in here just in case I needed to, have a little extra cable for some reason on that end, so I didn't have to pull it all the way back. But I wouldn't recommend leaving a ton. It's just more cable to pick up more noise. But anyways, you'll want to pull all your slack through all the chains and into here. If you want, you can bundle it up. I'm trying to make the cable length, close, so we don't have, a ton of extra. This is my first cable, so I made it a little long. I'll figure out what this extra length is, and we'll shorten them for the production cables. But you'll want to run it through that top track, down, over, and then come out to connect into the controller. Probably need to be safe and cognizant about ESD, electrostatic discharge. So make sure at all times when you're touching your electrical connections that you are grounded, using either a ground strap or just making sure you're in contact with something conductive on the machine, so that you don't discharge static electricity into the sensitive electronics. G-Wake is probably not thrilled about us doing this work, but if things were engineered properly, or the cable was up to spec, we wouldn't be having these issues. So anyway, I'll cut it here. I think it's pretty straightforward from this point. If you guys have any questions, feel free to leave comments. And yeah, I hope this fixes everyone's issues they're having with the height control. Just a quick tip when you're putting everything back together, especially if you, like me, pulled the air lines out to this point, to get them back in, it's easiest to have the carriage all the way over here so that you have the longest run of this small cable chain possible, because it's fairly easy to, if you twist the hose just right, it will feed in all the way down to the corner really easily. See if I can demonstrate with this clear hard tube. So if you can get the angle just right, it'll feed in, and you can kind of hear it as it moves, sneaks down. And then once you hit the corner, which I actually popped out over here, so I'm just going to push that the rest of the way through. But like this black hose, I'm stuck at the corner. So what you can do with the power off is you can scoot the carriage down and bring that elbow right around. And now it should be a little bit easier to get the other airline to push through around this corner. If not, you can pop one or two of these and get it, rather than having to open up this entire cable chain and try to fight getting your airlines back through. To put these cable chain pieces back in, especially the small ones, this little hump here is the pivot point of the link to the right. And so if you set it down in here like this and kind of push down here, it'll catch on and then just kind of rock and snap in place. If you just try to mash them straight down, they don't go on well and they tend to break. So like I said, if you just kind of set it in here, push this side down, if I can get in close, you can kind of see it catch, and then just snaps on. Knowing how to do it makes it really easy, versus trying to fight it.